So when we talk about forensic investigation, we don't really see forensic investigation itself as an attack. This is more of a cybersecurity practice. So we wouldn't necessarily remediate against it. But we can talk about here is instead of preventing forensic investigation, we can talk about what helps us with forensic investigation, or rather what can prevent the need for having forensic investigation happen after the fact. And of course that means doing more to collect information that is freely available and easily accessible later on. If we collect this information before the fact, before anything happens that would require it. And so when we're talking about privately owned devices that might be part of a criminal investigation or legal proceedings, of course, it might be hard to convince an owner to perform these practices. But if you're a corporation or a legal entity where you want to prove that what you were doing is all above board, and suppose you're at the other end of a lawsuit or a criminal investigation or some kind of investigation, it's important that you are capturing information of your own, and you can show that there's no need for forensics here. Here's all my information out in the open. Here's all the logs, and I don't need to go through some sort of a longer audit because everything's above board. This is kind of like the version of having all your accounts, all your accounting material freely available to investigators and compliance auditors, and not having to go through forensic accounting. So in forensic investigation, the way that we can aid with any investigation without having to go through complex process, one we can do is have regular backups of data. And what this lets us do is avoid lengthy processes of recovering data from, suppose, destroyed hard drives or anything like that. And this will let investigators see what the data might have looked like at a particular snapshot in time in the past, especially if something is being investigated that is related to occurrences in the past beyond the current window for retention of data for your particular business or organization. And also we can talk about audit trails, and audit trails are really very specific kind of logs, and audit trails are more like records of who did what when. So if you think about something like GitHub, or what would be an audit trail for GitHub, it would be user so-and-so logged in, user so-and-so created a repository, user so-and-so performed a commit, user so-and-so did a label change on an issue, and then they did another commit. So essentially it's a trail, right? It's a series of recorded events, and it shows as a almost like a story the activity that happened by a particular user or a particular service inside an account, or something that touched particular entities. And having accurate and detailed audit trails, especially ones that can be shown to be tamper-proof, will be very useful in proving certain statements later on. And having audit trails is often a part of compliance requirements and legal requirements. If you work in an industry, especially, which is under PCI or HIPAA or any of the other compliance standards that a lot of industries require. And to go with that, there is access logging, and access logging is a little more generic. Access logging refers to the practice of just logging every single request that comes into a system, and it usually will capture the IP, the timestamp, the user agent string, or anything else that's available. And essentially it'll just generate massive logs that show here's a complete timeline of everything that tried to perform a request against a particular system. And that's something that might be too verbose to continuously be looking at, but something that, if combined with the first two items here, can be used to easily reconstruct a picture without having to go through more complicated forensics activities, without having to go through a lot of different algorithms and kind of digging through data. Especially because access logs tend to have very consistent patterns to how the data is captured. so they can be used as a way to reconstruct a view of past events, as far at least as systems and data are concerned.